Yo, I'm Master Fisher and welcome to today's video. And only the recording for this video took me 12 hours. So I would really appreciate it if you leave a like to this video. But now, enjoy. So in today's video, I played 10 seasons of the F1 22 career mode. So now let's have a look what happened and predict the future. 2022. And the thing which matches with real life is that Sebastian Vettel announces his retirement from Formula 1 after the 2022 season. So like in real life, Vettel retires also in the game. But now let's jump straight to the end of the season, and in Abu Dhabi, Max Verstappen wins ahead of Sainz and Leclerc and also secures his second Formula 1 World Championship title ahead of Leclerc and Paris in P3, 83 points between them. And I think that could also be a really realistic result at the end of the season, if not bigger in real life than here in the game. But watch the video until the end so you'll see which driver has the most titles after the 2031 season. Red Bull also wins his 5th Constructors' Championship title ahead of Ferrari and Mercedes in P3. And that is really likely to happen as well in real life this year. Overall, Verstappen won 14 races, and also that is possible in real life this year. He only needs 5 more wins, and then with 14 he would also have a new record about the most wins in one season. At the moment the record is 13 by Michael Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel. But now let's move to the interesting things, the beginning of the 2023 season and the driver moves. Fernando Alonso also announces his retirement from Formula 1, so Vettel and Alonso out of F1 after 2022, and Esteban Ocon moves to Haas, replacing Magnussen. Really interesting move from him there, can't see that in real life happening. Zhou is moving to Aston Martin to replace Sebastian Vettel because Alonso isn't there to replace Vettel, so Zhou is moving there. Magnussen moves to Alfa Romeo, replacing Bottas. Latifi goes to Alfa Romeo, replacing Zhou. So Alfa Romeo only one season with Zhou and Bottas. Then both of them are away, and Magnussen and Latifi are there. Bottas moving to Alpine to replacing Alonso, and Robert Schwarzman makes his way into Formula 1 to replace Esteban Ocon at Alpine. And if you look at the car performance at the beginning of Season 2, we see Ferrari lost a lot of ground to Red Bull, Mercedes and McLaren. And Max Verstappen just doing Max Verstappen things, winning 4 out of the first 4 races of the season. Lewis Hamilton wins his 104th race in Formula 1, and spoiler alert, it's his last race at the Hungarian Grand Prix in 2023. After that, he will never win a race again, but he becomes the first ever driver to win a race after reaching the 300 Grand Prix starts mark. So what an achievement from him overall in Formula 1. Really impressive. And then this happened in Formula 1. Carlos Sainz announces his retirement after the 2023 season. After only 3 seasons together with Ferrari, he makes the decision to leave Formula 1. Can you imagine that happening in real life? I can't, because he's still very young. But it will be really interesting who will replace him at Ferrari. So let's see. Landon Norris wins the Brazilian Grand Prix and is now only 16 points behind Verstappen with 1 race to go. It's everything to play for the young Brit. And Daniel Ricciardo wins the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix in 2023 ahead of Landon Norris, but Verstappen finishing P3. Verstappen now is a 3-time world champion. McLaren winning the Constructors' Championship. What an achievement by the team. Red Bull P2, Ferrari in P3. 3 times in a row. Can you repeat it and do the Sebastian Vettel winning 4 titles with Red Bull? Let's see. Moving to 2024 now. And Dan Ticktum, I mean seriously, Dan Ticktum has been signed to Ferrari, replacing Sainz. In which universe do we live? I mean, seriously, that's a thing which will never happen. Myself moving to Alpine, replacing Schwarzman, and Schwarzman moving to Williams, replacing me. So we switched the positions because Williams didn't want to continue with me. Max Verstappen wins the opening race of the season. Who could that see? I don't know, but it's really impressive because he started 14th and still won this Grand Prix with his one-stop strategy. A lot of people doing two stops and then falling back. Pierre Gasly had his first pole position for AlphaTauri. And also Schwarzman, really impressive first race for Williams, starting 16th and finishing 10th, first points. It's summer break in Formula 1 and Tim only managed to get 4 points for Ferrari in the first half of the season, so they kicked him out, and Schwarzman got 5 points in the Williams, so they signed him for Ferrari. And Piastri has been signed to Williams to replace Schwarzman, kicked him out of Formula 1 again after a half season of Formula 1. And the championship battle is really tight again. Landon Norris wins from pole position at the Dutch Grand Prix. Really disappointing for Verstappen and his Orange Army, but he started in 9th and made his way all up to P2. That's quite a good race for him. And after the Dutch Grand Prix, Verstappen and Norris are equal in the standings for the World Championship. That will be a really interesting way to the end of the season. But after the Dutch Grand Prix, Verstappen and Norris finished 1-2 for the following 3 races. Verstappen now has a gap of 19 points. Landon Norris has to make a step up. And Lewis Hamilton announces his retirement from Formula 1 after the 2024 season. I think that's also quite realistic, because then after he completes the rest of this season, he has 354 races done in Formula 1 and is only 2 behind Fernando Alonso, who has 356 races. And remember, Alonso retired 2 seasons ago. Yes, after the 2022 season. Max Verstappen wins the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, so he is a 4-time world champion now, equal with Sebastian Vettel and Alain Prost. And very disappointing for McLaren, as both of them DNF'd in this race. So the championship hopes for Landon Norris were over just after the start. He completed only a few laps in this race. But McLaren won a second Constructors' Championship in a row with quite a big margin ahead of Red Bull. But because of Lewis Hamilton's retirement, there are a few driver moves for the 2025 season, and Mick Schumacher replaces Hamilton at Mercedes. Wow! After a few seasons in the Haas, he really earned that seat in the Mercedes. Nicolas Latifi moves to Haas, replacing Schumacher, and Yuri Vips makes his way into Formula 1, replacing Latifi at Alfa Romeo. And McLaren made excellent work over the winter. They definitely have the best car on the grid, and also scoring a double win at the season opener in Bahrain. But then not so much happened during the 2025 season. McLaren has the best car of the grid. They won 12 out of the first 15 races of the season. But then the Thursday before the Italian Grand Prix, Max Verstappen announces his retirement from Formula 1. What? In 2021, he said, let's continue for 10 or 15 more years, but then in 2025, he announces his retirement. Maybe because Red Bull doesn't have the best car off the grid and he's a little bit salty on the team, I don't know. But he will retire after the end of the 2025 season. He won't get another world championship because his gap to the front is too big, so he retires with 4 championships in his bag. McLaren also won the last race of the season with a double win, securing a double championship. Lando Norris is now a Formula 1 world champion in 2025, and McLaren also wins his 3rd Constructors' Championship in a row with Daniel Ricciardo. Wow, what a work they done. I can't see that happening in real life, but yeah, maybe. Everything can happen. Landon Norris didn't manage to get the record of Sebastian Vettel. He stays with 7 wins in a row. During the season, there were some rumors who will replace Verstappen at Red Bull. There were a lot of talks about Tsunoda, but then, during the winter break, Lawrence Stroll brought 50% of Red Bull Racing, and everybody knew what that means. Lance Stroll is moving to Red Bull, and Dan Ticktum is back in Formula 1, replacing Stroll at Aston Martin. So he were a few years out of Formula 1 again, and then in 2026 he makes his way back to the series. Landon Norris, on the peak of his career, wins again Pierre Gasly in P2, and I got my first podium in Formula 1, starting 20th position, made my way up to P3. Wow, that was a race, I can tell you. Awesome. But McLaren keeps winning and winning, winning 8 out of the first 8 races of the season. 5 for Norris, 3 for Ricciardo. Last season, Landon Norris managed to get 12 race wins under the belt. Can he get more this season? We will find out. The 2026 season was quite boring. Landon Norris wins with more than 100 points ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, and he got 15 race wins in this season. And Landon Norris managed to get 2 new records in Formula 1. First, he got 21 podiums in one season. He had just 1 DNF in USA while he was leading, so it would have been a 100% streak, but with that only 21 podiums, but it's still a new record. And he also got a new record about wins, 15 wins in one season. McLaren also securing their 4th championship in a row. And for the 2027 season, there were no driver changes. Everything stayed the same for this season. And Landon Norris keeps doing what Landon Norris and McLaren can do with that fast car on the grid. Lance Stroll gets his first race win for Red Bull in Azerbaijan. Leclerc wins in Canada. Pierre Gasly with his 3rd career win in Australia. And yeah, Lance Stroll really destroying Sergio Perez in this Red Bull. But then, really shocking news in Formula 1 after the Dutch Grand Prix in 2027. George Russell announces his retirement from Formula 1. Until now, he never got a race win. He has only a few races left, but the Mercedes isn't that good. Can he win one race in Formula 1? We will find out now. And the answer on that is no, he can't. He got really close to that in the USA, finishing P2 with the fastest lap right behind Landon Norris. That was a close race, but he couldn't win one race in Formula 1 before he retired. Landon Norris again finishing P1 with over 100 points ahead of Lance Stroll. McLaren winning a 5th Constructors' Championship in a row, and Landon Norris winning a 3rd championship in a row. For the 2028 season, there were a lot of driver moves in Formula 1. Pierre Gasly moves to Ferrari, replacing Robert Schwartzman. Thatoneporchydood now makes his way into Formula 1, and he's driving for AlphaTauri, replacing Gasly. Valtteri Bottas is moving back to Mercedes after Russell retires from Formula 1. What? Can you see that happening? Mercedes signing Bottas again. Kevin Magnussen moving to Alpine, replacing Bottas. And Schwartzman is back in Alfa Romeo for Kevin Magnussen. And his first race for Ferrari, and Pierre Gasly wins the season opener of the 2028 season with Ferrari. Ricciardo P2 and Charles Leclerc P3. Is Ferrari back? Looks like. And then during the 2028 season, Daniel Ricciardo announces his retirement after this season in Formula 1. And that means he has 355 race starts in Formula 1. Just 1 behind P1 of Fernando Alonso and 1 more than Lewis Hamilton, so that's really tight there at the top of the overall race starts. The last race of the 2028 season is done. Landon Norris winning 9 in total, Charles Leclerc only 5, Gasly 2, and that means Landon Norris is now a 5-time champion of the world, equal with Sebastian Vettel, Alain Prost and Max Verstappen. Wow. McLaren now won his 6th Constructors' Championship in a row. Can they be a threat to Mercedes, who has currently the record for the most Constructors' Championship in a row with 8? We will find out. After just a 1-year contract from Valtteri Bottas at Mercedes, he's moving now to McLaren because Daniel Ricciardo retired from Formula 1. Zhou is moving to Alpine for Magnussen because Magnussen is replacing Bottas at Mercedes. Liam Lawson is now in Formula 1, signed to Aston Martin to replace Guan Yu Zhou. And at the end of the 2029 season, Landon Norris is again Formula 1 World Champion for the 5th time. And that means he's now equal on championships with Juan Manuel Fangio. What a career for Landon Norris so far. Let's see what he can achieve in the next years. And by the way, it's the 7th consecutive Constructors title for McLaren since 2023. Maybe they can be a threat for the record from Mercedes with 8. For the beginning of the 2030 season, all teams lost a lot of performance by the new regulations, but Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes and McLaren are still ahead, with Alfa Romeo in 5th place. And as usual, there are a lot of driver moves for the new season, and Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc swapping places, with Perez now at Ferrari, Leclerc now at Red Bull. Liam Lawson moves to Williams because Piastri moved from Williams to Aston Martin, and Richard Vershaw has been signed to AlphaTauri because Tsunoda retired from Formula 1 after the 2029 season. And the first race of the season is over, and who won it? Of course, Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc in his first race for Red Bull, P2 in the Bahrain Grand Prix. That's a good start in his new team. And despite Lando Norris only finishing P3 at the season finale in Abu Dhabi, Pierre Gasly wins, Lance Stroll in P2. He is now a 6-time Formula 1 champion of the world. And McLaren now has 8 consecutive Constructors' Championship, which means they are now equal at the record with Mercedes, and they have the next 2031 season still to go. Let's see if they can break the record of the most consecutive Constructors' Championship in a row. Charles Leclerc wins the opening race of the 2031 season for Red Bull ahead of Ocon and Bottas. Landon Norris retired from the first race of the season. But then, as we move to the French Grand Prix, McLaren now is leading the Drivers' Championship with both of their drivers a few points ahead of the Red Bull drivers, but Leclerc now ahead of Stroll. And now it's time for the Dutch Grand Prix, and Kevin Magnussen, who now drives with Mick Schumacher for Mercedes, is now in 2031 a Formula 1 Grand Prix winner. Wow! What a career from him in the last race of the Formula 1 career season in 2022. He wins a race for Mercedes. We have again a new winner in Formula 1, and this time it's Theo Pourchaire winning for AlphaTauri. Honda would be very proud. A 1-2 for the Honda team. I know it's Red Bull Powertrains for a while, but before it were Honda and AlphaTauri, and Red Bull still cooperating with Honda, so what a race for them. Lando Norris, he is now a 7th-time champion of the world and is now equal in the all-time standings with Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton. McLaren as well wins the Constructors' title for the 9th time in a row since 2023. They won every Constructors' title until now, 2031. What an achievement by the team. Wow. And now, before the video ends, I have a few very interesting stats for you. After now 10 seasons in F1 22 and the 2031 season complete, Lewis Hamilton has still the most wins of everybody, 104. Schumacher in P2 with 91, but then there is Landon Norris in P3 with 90 wins. Can you imagine that? Landon Norris being a 7th-time champion of the world and 90 wins? I can, but he needs the right team for that. Max Verstappen, by the way, retired quite early after the 2025 season and has 58 wins to his name, Charles Leclerc 28. And by the way, unfortunately, Charles Leclerc never won a Formula 1 World Championship. If that happens in real life, it would be very, very sad. But a very interesting stat as well is who has the most race starts in Formula 1, and this will be Valtteri Bottas with 398 starts, and that's quite a big margin to P2, which is still Fernando Alonso 356. And after 9 constructors titles in a row, McLaren is now ahead of Ferrari in the standings with 1 title more to their name. Wow, that was a season. And by the way, this is happening when you end the 10 seasons in F1 22. It's completely unspectacular. It's a loading screen, you come back to the home screen, and then you can't even open the career again. So you can't watch or rewatch the stats. I'm so glad that I saved it before on screen, but yeah, I can't even see the stats again. Very unspectacular. I hoped for a very cool scene at the end of 10 seasons, but yeah, nothing happens. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this simulation of the 10 F1 seasons from 2022 onwards. Write in the comments what you think can happen actually in real life. I worked for about 24 hours at this video, so I would really appreciate if you leave a like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future F1 content, and then I will see you soon.